My name is Martin Madert with the Witness to War Foundation, and the following interview is part of the United States Marine Corps Vietnam Tankers Association History Project. This interview is being conducted at the VTA reunion in St. Louis, Missouri on September 24, 2017. Interviewees are members of the VTA. The purpose of the History Project and the interviews is to capture the experiences of Vietnam veterans and make them available for future generations.
My name is John Hancock. My dates of service in Vietnam was from September of 1967 to October 1968. I was with 2nd Platoon Charlie Company, 3rd Tank Battalion, 3rd Marine Division.
And if you could start with what you wanted to discuss today.
Okay. On arrival in Vietnam, I was assigned to the 3rd Tank Battalion. They were located outside of Phu Bai at a place called Jale. Reported to the 3rd Tank Battalion and was assigned to Charlie Company. So before all the new guys left for their assigned companies, John Cornelius, who was famous in the Marine Corps as being the founder of the tank school at Del Mar, California, was in H&S Company. So we had a refresher course, so to speak. John Cornelius had a little tank school, and I think it helped quite a few of us. Then we rough ridered up to Camp Evans, where the Charlie Company was located. And I was assigned to the 2nd Platoon Charlie Company as tank commander on Charlie 2-3. But Charlie 2-3 was in maintenance company at H&S Company back at Jale. So the crew was filling in with the rest of the platoon on perimeter watch and what have you. And so anyways, after about a week or so, we were directed to go back down to Jale to bring our Charlie 2-3 up into combat readiness. So the crew got, all of us got back on the Rough Rider and back down to Jale we went. And we worked on the tank and got it up and installed new track, new sprockets, got it ready to go, topped it off with fuel, departed Jale, got out on Highway 1 heading north. The tank quit. So we're trying to figure out what was going on and decided to check the fuel filters. Got the fuel filters out. They were full of dirt and crap and stuff. Got them cleaned up, put it back together, on the road again. Went a few more miles up toward Way City. It quit again. So fuel filters again. Got them out, got them cleaned out. Back together, up the road again. For a ways, and it quit again. So we knew what the problem was. We had picked up a load of dirty fuel. Contaminated fuel. So anyways, we were running out of daylight. Didn't want to be out on the road after dark in Indian country. There was a big ARVN base there. I have no idea where it was at. I think it was north of Way. We'd finally made it through Way. So we pulled into the ARVN base and set up on their perimeter and spent the night. But we'd been in touch with the company back up at Camp Evans, and they told us that after daylight to proceed northward again, and the retriever would meet us somewhere along the road. So after 3 or 4 more fuel filter cleanings, we ran into the tank retriever and a 2-tank escort. So got hooked up on the back of the retriever and heading north. This time we didn't have to worry about the dirty fuel. So anyways, when we pulled into Camp Evans, you would not believe the cat calls and the whistles and the cheering and stuff that we got. So this is my funny little story about arrival in Vietnam and what went on for the first part, and we'll save the second part for a later date.
We have plenty of time if you want to get into that.
That's okay. That's my little funny story about.
Fair enough. Now tell me about your role in the company.
I was the tank commander on Charlie 2-3, and later I was the light section leader, which is I was in charge of 2 tanks. And later I became acting platoon sergeant of the 2nd platoon.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 22, turned 23 over there. So anyways, I was probably one of the old men, or an old man in the company, because most of the kids were 17, 18, 19 years old, 20. So probably at that time I was one of the old guys, they say.
What did you have to learn to be a better leader as you started moving up in the ranks to become platoon sergeant?
It was all like on-the-job training, observance, and just accepting a responsibility and being able to handle that responsibility.
As I understand it, these tank groups work like a well-oiled machine. Tell me about getting everybody on the same page, up to speed like that.
Oh yeah, they're the tank crewmen they're well trained, and they can step into the next position. Like the low position on the tank is the loader's position, and then the driver's position, then the gunner, then the tank commander. And they're cross-trained. We let the loader, he'll drive a little bit. The driver will sit in the gunner's seat. The gunner will TC a little bit. The driver will TC. And if something happens in, to say like the tank commander gets wounded or killed or whatever, then the gunner can step up and take that tank commander's position and operate the tank, or vice versa. If something happens that the gunner gets injured or whatever, then the driver can step in, or the loader can step in the gunner's position.
Now, were injuries fairly common for your platoon?
We had some WIAs and some KIAs but fortunately for me, I must have had a guardian angel, because I came through unscathed, so to speak, as far as being injured or wounded or.
Any close calls for you?
I had the toggle switch on my comm helmet was shot off, so.
I can only imagine the pucker factor on that one.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
Now tell me about the difficulties of maneuvering tanks through this environment.
We were mostly operational, we had some mountainous areas. We operated out of Camlo into what they called Leatherneck Square a couple times, and you know, as far as difficulties was mines, we did run into a couple of ambushes set up. Then we operated over on the coast, in inland to like Highway 1 and stuff, and it was a sandy-like environment. So.
How was sand difficult for tanks for someone?
A lot of wear on the suspension system.
There were a few rivers out that way, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we had we operated like north of the Quaviet River, and they had some creeks, you know, streams, but they were fairly negotiable. I guess knock on wood, I didn't operate through the rice paddies or, you know, stuff like that. I've heard people talk about their experiences with the rice paddies. I did have, there's a little village called Mylock, and it had been blown away, and it was pretty close to the mouth of the Quaviet River where it went into South China Sea, and we had pulled in, had 5 tanks. We pulled in, and these houses, they had packed the dirt and earth and stuff down, and we pulled up on those pads where the houses had been. And we didn't have any trouble getting to the pads. So anyway, the next morning, when we started to form up and pulled off the pads, I had 4 tanks to sink. One was still on the pad, and I was yelling at him to stay, don't move. And what we done, we were able to, after a while, we tried to throw debris from the houses under the tracks, but they would just sit there and churn. So we hooked our tow cables together. And the one tank, we backed him up to the edge of the pad and hooked the tow cable, and then he would pull up, and then we'd unhook him, and he'd back up, and we'd drop a tow cable, and when we got another tank up on that pad, we'd tell him to go. And then we'd done that until we got all of the tanks out of the mire. And then on the way out, there was an Amtrak that was mired up, so we hooked onto him and drug him out of there too. So that ended well. It could have been worse. We just went down, down to about the fenders on the tanks. But I've heard tales of where they sunk, and you just see the radio antennas sticking out of the mud, so we made out pretty good there.
Now, you were there during the Tet Offensive. Tell me about your experiences of that.
The Tet Offensive was, we weren't too involved with Tet. On the 19th of January, we went on a reaction force where Marine platoon had walked into an ambush and was pinned down. And we were involved a little bit with Mylock. But as far as actual Tet, we really weren't all that much involved. I think maybe the 1st Amtrak Battalion and landing force come in contact with I can't remember if it was a 803rd or 802nd NVA regiment, and they decimated that NVA unit. It was no longer a fighting force anymore. But as far as myself and my platoon or tanks at that time weren't all that much involved with Tet.
Well, that about does it for time today. Is there anything else you'd like to wrap up on, or words of advice for future generations?
No, that's about my story. I was going to start with that little. I thought it was kind of hilarious about the dirty fuel. After all the work to get the tank up into combat readiness, the suspension and whatever we done, and then take on a load of dirty fuel.
It's always something.
Always something, yes, sir.
Well, one final question. What do you want future generations to remember about the Vietnam War based on your experiences?
Based on my experiences about the Vietnam War, there was a lot of unnecessary American lives lost. It was political. The Secretary of Defense and General Westmoreland should not have had anything to do with it. There was not much coordination between the different military units, such as Marine Corps, Army. But I'm glad it's over. Hopefully we're getting a little more recognition than we did during and after. And even the older veterans are starting to recognize us a little bit. So, and I really appreciate it when I'm wearing my Vietnam hat or whatever, and somebody says, "Welcome home." It's really appreciated.
Well, John, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share your stories with me today. Really, it's an honor and a pleasure, but more importantly, thank you so much for your service.
You're very welcome.